Good morning, all of you. Welcome back to Ansarkari. So, firstly, we'll be going through the Hindu newspaper for 24th of November, and after that, we'll also jump on to the Financial Express and have a look at the Mint. So, the first piece of article is again about the independence of the election commissioner, as we also saw it yesterday. So, the Supreme Court is saying that election commissioner shouldn't be a yes man, and right now four aspects are being examined by the Supreme Court. So the first one is regarding the CEC and the ECs by a collegium of Prime Minister, CGI, and the leader of opposition. Second is about the equal protection to CEC and ECs and common procedure of removal should be brought up or not. Third is about the rule-making powers to the Election Commission, like they are with the Supreme Court, Lok Sabha, and Rajya Sabha. And fourthly is the independent secretariat and the budget for the commission. So I would like to quote the words of Supreme Court. According to the Supreme Court, an election commissioner should be such a person, a personality who would not shirk from even taking on the prime minister if required. So such must be the dedication, and only then we can call that personality to be a true election commissioner who is trying to ensure that elections are being conducted in a free and fair manner, and also he or she should be a person who could even take a stand, even risking his life. So that is about it. And MHA takes up the MEA influx of the Kukitchins. So Kukichin community is from Bangladesh who entered the state of Mizoram, and officially they are displaced persons. So India does not have a law on refugees. And according to the MHA, the Ministry of Home Affairs, the foreign nationals who enter the country without valid travel documents, they are treated as illegal immigrants. So then the polygraph test, it is also known as a lie detector test, and you can, search more about it. How is the procedure of this test, and like what is the manner in which the test is conducted. Then we have the ransomware attack in Ames. So you can find out more about what is the National Informatics Center, and with the growing instances and the frequencies of the cyber attacks, such huge institutions are being attacked and targeted. So we need to come up with a dedicated policy which will be helping in dealing with such attacks. Then Global Investor Summit 2023 will be happening in UP. So the states are trying to attract more and more of FDI and investment into the states. So the state has also set a goal of becoming a $1 trillion economy, and which is in lines with the Indian economy becoming a $5 trillion economy. So this would obviously help be like given UP is one of the most populous states in India. So if more and more investment flows into the state, the industries which would be labor intensive will be helping the people in earning income. The unemployment rate would reduce, and this would set in a virtuous cycle in the state, helping it to grow economically and also socially. So the partner countries includes Netherlands, Denmark, Singapore, the UK, and Mauritius. And UP, as I said, is the biggest market of labor and consumers in India. And moving ahead, so a play was being conducted in Mysuru regarding Tipu Sultan. So Tipu's death in Sringapatna happened during the Fourth Anglo-Mysore War on May 4th, 1799. But in this play, it was shown that he died because of Veera Kaliguru, who was loyal to the Vadiyar rulers of the Mysuru. So this thing is being held controversial, and it is being like taken up by historians. So you can see the price of milk is set to increase. So we do not see any kind of relief from inflation as of now, although the October data brought some relief, but this is not the time to celebrate. We need to see how things are going to unfold in future. Then historic Howrah-based Shalimar shipyard delivers naval ferry craft. So it is located in the state of West Bengal, and it is 135-year-old Howrah-based Shalimar shipyard, and steps were being taken for its revitalization for last 1 year, and the INS is named INS Manjula, which is being gilded into the Hooghly River. You can see in the picture. And the original shipyard, it was established by Turner Morrison in 1885, and after independence it changed hands several times before being taken up over by the state government in 1980. So the vessel would help in transporting the personnel, deriving the stores, delivering to the stores and rations to ships, and in patrolling also. Then when we talk about Jallikattu, Supreme Court had banned it, and Jallikattu is both a religious and a cultural event which is celebrated by the people of Tamil Nadu. So, the state of Tamil Nadu is saying that the bull taming sport is a cultural heritage of the state, and it is protected under Article 29, Clause 1 of the Constitution, which falls under the fundamental right. So, it is asking the Supreme Court to lift the ban because it's a crucial part of the cultural events in the state. So let's see what is going to happen ahead. And then ISRO to launch Ocean Sat 3 and 8 nanosatellites. So Ocean 3 is a third generation satellite in the Earth observation satellite O6 is the third generation satellite in the Ocean Sat series, and it will be launched by the Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle PSLV C-54, and they will be launched in the sun synchronous polar orbits. And let's move ahead. So ensuring that equal tenure of security is given to the CECs and ECs, it will boost the panel's independence. Then we need to have a neutral mechanism for the appointment of the ECs, which raises important questions on the election body's functional independence. So we are just talking about how to make election commission a more independent body. What steps can be taken for that? So the first one is regarding the appointment mechanism, which needs to be made more independent with less political interference. Then whether commissioners they should be appointed on the recommendation of an independent body or not. And Article 324 of the Constitution, it envisages a parliamentary law for the purpose of appointment, but till now there is no law that has been enacted for this purpose, and court should frame a process on its own or not is also a question in today's times, something that obviously the government would not want, and because government would not want to give up its own powers. And also, since 1993, the Election Commission of India, it has become a multi-member body which comprises one chief election commissioner who is the chairman, and there are two election commissioners more who are appointed. So the current convention is to appoint election commissioners, and then they are elevated to the position of CEC on the basis of their seniority. And the CEC has a tenure of 6 years or till the age of 65 years, whichever is earlier. And also, the CEC can be impeached by the Parliament, the same, which is in the same manner as of the Supreme Court judge, and he enjoys only the CEC enjoys the same status as of the Supreme Court judge, and ECs they can be removed on the CEC's recommendation. So, should we also make this process similar or not is also one of the questions that is being debated by the Supreme Court. Now, talking about the problem of malnutrition in India. So, recently the Global Hunger Index 2022 was released, and India was ranked at 107 out of 121 countries. So you need to find out which organizations release this index from the perspective of prelims. You can remember the rank, and you can also cite this in mains wherever it is required and it fits in well. So the government of India is saying it is basically not accepting the position that has been allotted to India given the procedure that has been followed, and this has been termed as a conspiracy against India by the government of India. So the indicators that are examined under this index is stunting, wasting, mortality among the children, and also the calorific deficiency across the population. Now, Government of India, like in correspondence to the Global Hunger Index, it rather prefers to cite the NFHS 5 data, which was conducted for the period 2019 to 2021, that the children below the age of 5 years, they reported 35.5% of stunting, 19.3% showed wasting. So stunting is basically low height for age, wasting is low weight for height, and 32.1% showed the underweight, so less weight for your age. So you need to remember this data. It is very important to substantiate your argument in mains. And moving ahead, so we'll be looking at the performance of the government schemes, the government that have launched the schemes and the policies to tackle the problem of malnutrition. So there are gaps that are witnessed in funding and the implementation of those schemes. So first, I'll name the schemes, like you can obviously cite them in your answers to substantiate your argument again and to strengthen again that you are aware about the schemes that are being run by the government to tackle this problem. So the first one is the Saksham Anganwadi scheme, then Prime Minister's overarching scheme for the holistic nutrition, which is Poshan 2.0 scheme, and which also includes the ICDS scheme, that is the Integrated Child Development Scheme. Then obviously, ICDS targets the adolescent girls, and there are schemes which also target the adolescent girls, specifically focusing upon tackling the problem of anemia. Then we have schemes for pregnant women, nursing mothers, and children below the age of 3. And when we talk about the budget allotted for these schemes, it was less than 1%. Then obviously, everyone knows about the midday meal scheme, which has been renamed to Pradhan Mantri Poshan Shakti Nirman, and the budget was 21% lower. So, how are we going to tackle the problem of malnutrition when, firstly, we are seeing that the schemes are underfunded, and secondly, whatever is available, even that is not being spent effectively, so lacks effective implementation. And the second one was, the first one as I said was underfunded schemes. So two major things come out of the schemes. And also thirdly, social audits are also not conducted, which is meant for the periodic oversight over the working of the schemes, their implementation. So social audits needs to be conducted in a routine manner and periodically. Then we'll be talking about, should cash transfers be relied upon as a major thing to tackle this problem of malnutrition, or do we need a diverse options to tackle this problem or not? So cash transfers, if we look at it, so basically it means directly transferring the cash amount, the money directly into the bank accounts of the beneficiaries. So this is furthered by the JAM Trinity, which stands for Jandan accounts, Aadhaar, and mobile. And obviously, cash transfers also helps the political parties to gain more political dividends, because people would be getting money directly into their bank accounts. And also, cash transfers helps in targeting the right beneficiaries. So these are some of the positives regarding the cash transfers. But when we look at their actual working and how are they working, in reality, on the ground, we see that their impact on child nutrition in India is limited so far. So, the question which I raised in the beginning regarding the cash transfers, so we get the answer that obviously we cannot rely 100% on the cash transfers in tackling malnutrition. So, because it has a limited impact, and however, it improves the household's food security. So when we talk about the entire household, it gives certain kind of food security when they are getting cash in their accounts. But what we see is that is not getting translated into improved child nutrition outcomes. So obviously we would want that to happen, but right now it is not happening in that way, and things are not working out as per our objective and target as far as cash transfers is concerned. So all like also one of the challenge or the difficulties that is faced in cash transfer is that the food prices, they are very volatile. So they keeps on fluctuating a lot. And second is the inflation, which leads to depletion in the purchasing power of the beneficiaries. So they would not be, benefited so much if they are getting the cash compared to getting the food directly, because the food would be given according to proper research and the allotment would be fixed, and that would obviously not be affected by the changes in the prices because government would be providing the food directly to the beneficiaries. And in case of cash, obviously inflation, especially in today's times when it is fluctuating, it is reaching the upper level of the safe limit of the 2 to 6% of the RBI target of inflation. So cash transfer is not going to be so successful today. And apart from the inflation, the food prices being volatile, we see that social factors such as the son preference also have negative impact when it comes to ensuring the nutritional diet of the girl child. So for that, we need to come up with a comprehensive social education program at the ground level, at the local level, in villages. With the help of panchayats, we can come up with such programs. We can conduct workshops and we can bring certain personalities which are working in this field. So, when we talk about the basics, there are three major problems why malnutrition is occurring or why it is happening at such a huge level in India. So, the first one is depressed economic conditions. So, we have huge amount of poor people. However, when we talk about the poverty elevation in India, so according to a research, a survey, we see that over the past 15 years, 415 million people have come out of poverty, specifically the multi-dimensional poverty. So we are moving ahead in the right direction and we are seeing results in the poverty elevation. So we are working upon the first factor, that is the depressed economic condition, and obviously things were made worse because of the COVID-19 pandemic also. So coming to the second factor which is responsible for malnutrition in India is the poor state of agriculture in India. So again, because of climate change and delayed withdrawal of the monsoon. We have prolonged monsoon in India happening over the past 3 years. So there is poor state of agriculture. The crops get distorted. They are not able to get sufficient amount, and obviously then we have the problem of MSP also. We do not have it like for a lot of food grains. So that is the second reason why there is malnutrition. And the third one is the unsafe sanitation practices. So in this case, we have the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, as you know, but again, it needs to bringing the behavioral change in people to be successful and to see results on ground. So these are the three major heads where which you can cite in your answers regarding the reasons behind malnutrition in India, or this can also be asked in interviews. So you have clearly defined three reasons for this. Then special supplements for the target group of pregnant and lactating mothers and infants and young children are essential. So we need to focus upon this. And obviously, when we talk about at the broader level, so we need greater involvement of the local government, the panchayats, and also of the local community groups in the design to tackle this problem of malnutrition. So community groups, the self-help groups, the NGOs can come forward, and delivery of the tailored nutrition interventions is also required, as we talked about special supplements for the targeted group, and also focusing upon the adolescent girls, especially in case of anemia. And the keyword is for the intergenerational nature, to overcome the intergenerational nature of malnutrition. So, targeting the adolescent girls, the pregnant women, the lactating mothers is important. So, this was the whole picture of the problem of malnutrition. We first discussed about the global hunger index and the government not being satisfied with the results and the procedure in which it was calculated. Then we talked about different schemes and two major problems of underfunding, and second was lack of effective implementation, no periodic social audits. Then we talked about the efficiency and the utility of cash transfers in tackling the problem of malnutrition. We talked about its benefits and some negatives. Then we talked about what can be what are the three reasons behind malnutrition in India, and what steps can be taken to tackle it at a broader level. So the steps are majorly focused at the local level, at the district level, with the involvement of the local community to overcome this intergenerational nature of malnutrition in India. I hope this is clear to you. Now, moving ahead, India is losing its cherished right to know. So, right to know is a fundamental right, and here we are again talking about the independence of the working of the Central Information Commission and how the RDI Act is working. So, the primary duty of CIC is to decide the disclosure or the non disclosure of information, and this thing has we can say that CIC is not fulfilling its responsibilities and the obligations as it was doing it before the 2019 amendment to the RTI Act. And when we see that right to information act with any public body and the guaranteed reply from the public information officer of that public body is to be given in 30 days. So whenever citizens file the for a petition under the RTI Act or an application under it. So they'll be getting a reply within 30 days, and in case there is no reply or there is dissatisfaction with the response, the citizen can file an appeal at the departmental level and then a second and the final appeal with the Information Commission. And then each state has its own state information commission to deal with these second appeals. Now, before the 2019 amendment to the RTI Act, the information commissioners were appointed to the CIC. They were equal in status to the chief election commissioner and that of the Supreme Court judge. So this was before the amendment, and they had a 5-year fixed tenure with defined terms of services. Now, after the amendment, the power goes into the hands of the government. So the center gave itself powers to change and decide these terms whenever it wished. So things have become more vague now. The power goes into the hands of the government and obviously impacting the functioning and impacting its functioning and its independence also. Now, from transparency to the hurdles, the CIC was functioning institution until 4 years ago. As I said, the manner in which it is now functioning after the amendment is completely different. So before the amendments, it had passed several orders which were seeking transparency in many cases of public importance. So, citing some examples, it boldly pronounced that the political parties they were under the RTI Act ambit. Secondly, it ordered disclosure of the current Prime Minister's educational qualifications. Third, the Reserve Bank of India's list of willful defaulters of loans was made public. And fourth, it acted as a strong proponent of transparency in public life. So basically, you can cite these three examples of how it was basically showing that CIC was functioning with so much of dedication and transparency, ensuring that public interest is met. But now it has become more like a walking dead institution, and in most cases, the ministries reiterate their earlier stand of non-disclosure, most often under vague grounds, citing like the information cannot be disclosed because of national interest. So this is, we can say, the same stand taken by the government in most of the cases when it comes to information disclosure to the citizens, hampering the transparency and again the right to know of the people. Then one of the cardinal rules of the natural justice is that no one should be a judge in their own case. So this is basically the rule behind the natural justice principle. And however, the commission, the CIC, it now allows, or it rather wants, that every ministry that stands accused of violating the RTI Act to act as the judge in their own case. So basically, violation of the principle of natural justice is happening, and then decide whether a disclosure is necessary. So the first decision or the first stand is taken by the ministry itself, which is being held accused of violating the RTI Act, and then the CIC is taking a stand. So that's how the things have changed now, and that's how CIC is functioning. So, do you really think, is it a move in the right direction? Are we moving more towards transparency and independence and more robust functioning of the Indian democracy? So, this thing is obviously going to erode the trust and the confidence of people in the government and in democracy, obviously. So, when it comes to bureaucracy, they reject the RTIs with a glee, with no fear of facing any penal provisions outlined in Section 20 of the RTI Act. So, even the bureaucrats, they are not afraid or scared of facing any penal provisions if they are violating the RTI Acts. And citizens now, they have to mount the pressure on the authorities to act and appoint the commissioners of integrity. This is the first reform that we need. And second is that lawyers have to help willingly the citizens to take matters to court and seek justice. So citizens and judiciary now they have the things in their hand to get out of this situation, and obviously not let their right to know to get eroded. Moving ahead, milk inflation at 7.5-year high. So you can see inflation is at the highest when we talk about the consumer goods. Then we talk about the SEBI's plan to tackle the market rumors. Now, the given it's a time of social media when so much of information is shared on social media platforms, SEBI is proposing measures to effectively tackle the market rumors, to tackle misinformation, which are obviously going to hamper the sentiments and the interest of the investors. So there are unverified rumors which are spread in the market and do not so SEBI basically wants to ensure that obviously the investors' confidence and their decision making is not affected because of these fake rumors and misinformation that is spread by few people and organizations. So with the growing influence of the print media, television, digital news, it argues that the companies they need to keep pace and ensure that any rumors they are verified or refuted. And there was a need for a quicker disclosure of the material events since information permeates very fast on social media and digital media. So, even timely disclosure of the materials on the part of the organizations is also important to be achieved and to be ensured. Now, this topic, El Nino, La Nina, is important from the perspective of geography. You must be knowing this can be asked in PT and already has been asked. So you must be aware about what is El Nino, what is La Nina, what are the basically conditions required behind them, and becomes important for GS1 also. So are the El Nino, La Nina weather patterns, are they changing? So before moving on to this question, we'll first have a look at what is actually El Nino. So during El Nino, the surface temperatures in the equatorial Pacific, it rises and the trade winds, which under normal conditions, they blow from east to west, but they get weakened during El Nino, and normally the easterly trade winds they blow from obviously Americas towards the Asia. So due to El Nino, they falter and we see a change in direction and they turn towards into westerlies. So they start blowing from Australian coast to the American coast, and that brings warm waters from the Western Pacific towards the Americas, towards the Peruvian coast, and the phenomena of upwelling, where the nutrient rich waters rise towards the surface, is also reduced during El Nino, hampering the impacts of the fishermen who depend upon fishing for their livelihood. And obviously, when the phenomena of upwelling is reduced, this reduces the phytoplankton, which is an important food component for the fishes. So obviously, we'll get less number of fishes near the Peruvian coast because during El Nino, so first condition is that basically we see warmer temperatures near the American coast, and there is negative impact or there is less upwelling of nutrient rich waters there. And El Nino, it causes dry and warm winter in northern US and Canada, and it also brings drought to Indonesia and Australia. And when we talk about India, it brings less of rainfall and causes more heat. So we have very high temperatures during summers because of El Nino. And when we talk about La Nina, it is completely opposite of El Nino. So exactly opposite of El Nino is La Nina, and the trade winds, they are now stronger than usual, pushing the warmer water towards Asia. So when we have warmer water towards Asia, we'll get more rainfall, which is obviously a good sign for the farmers, for the agriculture sector in India. And on the American coast, we'll be seeing upwelling of water, which brings nutrient rich water to the surface. And obviously, at the same time, we witnessed heavy floods in Australia. So, in India, as we saw that during the past 3 years, we have seen surplus rains in September, which is normally under normal conditions, it is a month that usually sees the monsoon retreat. But we have been seeing La Nina conditions over the past 3 years in India and the globe. So this was about El Nino and La Nina, and when we talk about the neutral condition between both of them, it is called the El Nino Southern Oscillation, which is ENSO. So these are large scale changes in the sea level pressure in the tropical Pacific region. So that is ENSO, the neutral state between the two opposite effects of El Nino and La Nina. And I hope I have covered everything from it, and also you can go through it once again if you have not understood anything. Then moving ahead. So trade talks with India not conditional on illegal migration. So we are obviously having discussions, having talks with UK on signing a free trade agreement. So Britain's negotiations are also going on for signing the comprehensive and progressive agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership. And when we talk about the Meghalaya, we have seen clashes between the state of Meghalaya and Assam at their borders, and it has led to crossfiring and killing of people. So Meghalaya, it was carved out of Assam in 1970 and became a full-fledged state in 1972. So this is important. You must be aware about this, and this is applicable for all the states in India. At least you must be knowing about the chronology of formation of different states, and this can be asked in interview. You can cite it at relevant points in means, and this can obviously it can come in PT also. Then we talk about Buddhism. So recently, we have seen a significant development in the Tibetan Buddhist circles. So the Nyingma sect, it's basically a Buddhist sect which follows Buddhism. It has identified a boy from Spiti in Himachal Pradesh as a reincarnation of the late Taklung Sethrung Rinpoche. He's a scholar known for his knowledge of the Tibetan Tantric school. So this is the recent development, and for us, the important thing is that we must be aware that the Nyingma sect is the oldest of all the Buddhist sects, and the Taktok monastery of Ladakh is one of the oldest monasteries related to the Nyingma sect. So the followers of this sect are spread across Tibet, Bhutan, Ladakh, Sikkim, and other Himalayan pockets. Then talks and discussions are going on for South China Sea Code of Conduct, given how China, is trying to overpower the region, and this should be aligned with the international rules and laws. So it must be in consonance in line with the United Nations Convention on the Law of Seas. You need to find out more about this convention, find out about its feature, when was it signed, or is India a party to this convention or not. Then India calls for a free, open, and inclusive order in the Indo-Pacific, which is based upon the respect for the sovereignty and the territorial integrity of all the nations. So these are basically different points about what is India's stand as far as the Indo-Pacific region is concerned. So I'll start again for this. So the first one is free, open, and inclusive order in the Indo-Pacific, which is going to be based upon the respect for sovereignty and the territorial integrity of all the nations. Third, the peaceful resolution of the disputes through dialogue and adherence to the international rules and laws. So we favor a rules-based order. Then then we have, okay, so more risk to the rules-based order from the non-traditional threats. So what are the non-traditional threats? Even the points are clearly mentioned in this article. So let's see. So the possibility of conventional interstate conflict cannot be ruled out. That is there. But we have seen an increase in the risk to the rules-based order because of threat, the rising threat from the non-conventional factors, and which obviously leads to the undermining of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. And what are those non traditional threats? So, first, piracy and armed robbery. Second is illegal human migration. Third is drugs and arms trafficking. Fourth is illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. So, clearly defined 4 points under the non traditional threats in the as far as our maritime security is concerned. So, we need a democratic Indo Pacific free from coercion. You can note these points down at one place because you're not going to get them in any book or any magazine or somewhere else. So when we talk about the the food security conditions, so India had imposed curbs on the exports of wheat and rice. So this has helped in bringing down the inflation rate as far as wheat and rice is concerned. So obviously when the exports are banned, so the domestic stock has increased, which has made more grain available for the domestic consumption and the PDS. So increase in the prices, it has come down from 15% to the 5%. And the inflation, one of the reasons behind inflation was the demand supply mismatch. Then for PT, one statement which is important, which becomes important from the measles, is that India has a target of eliminating the viral disease by the year 2023. So next year, are we going to see the elimination of measles from India or not? Is obviously a thing to be seen in future. Now, when we talk about the Agni 3 nuclear capable ballistic missile, India has test fired it, and it is an intermediate range ballistic missile which was launched from the ABJ Abdul Kalam Island in Odisha. And Agni series of missiles, they constitute the backbone of India's nuclear weapons delivery, and India has also completed its nuclear triad. So nuclear triad basically means the nuclear missiles now can be fired from land, that is surface, water, and from air. So this completes the nuclear triad, and INS Arihant is again a nuclear ballistic missile submarine, which is INS Arihant. Then, when we talk about the developments around the world, we see that in Nepal, the Sher Bahadur Diba comes back to power with huge majority, And coming to economy, when we talk about the cotton exports, we see that the cotton prices have increased. So that is going to have a negative impact on the cotton exports because now that decreases the foreign competitiveness of cotton. And find out more about the Committee on Cotton Production and Consumption. And in several areas, we saw that the sowing and the harvesting have been delayed, so which has obviously impacted the supply of cotton and the yield of the cotton also. And people are also expecting that the prices would go up in future, so only then they'll be supplying their part of the cotton harvest to the market. So even because of this reason, the cotton supply is at lower levels compared to the previous levels the previous year. And when we talk about the GCC, so India and GCC are in discussions to sign a free trade pact. So GCC, that is the Gulf Cooperation Council. You need to know that the members, there are six countries member of the GCC, which includes Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Oman, Bahrain, and Kuwait. So these are the six countries members of the GCC, and obviously India is not a member, so do not get confused with that. Now, Goldman Sachs, it expects 25 basis repo rate cut in quarter four of this financial year if inflation dips to 5.3% as per its forecast. So if this happens, we'll be reducing the repo rate, and with the reduction in repo rate, obviously we'll have the opportunity to attract more investment, which is going to play an important role in our economic growth. Now, so this is it from the Hindu. Now let's move on to the Financial Express. So the most important topic that we have in Financial Express today is regarding the groundwater in India. So it is giving us a data. So it says that India is extracting 60% of its extractable groundwater. So we are extracting out 60% of the total groundwater that can be extracted, and the highest usage of groundwater globally is in India. So, are we ensuring its efficient usage? Are whether the groundwater resources are being recharged timely, or like what is the level of the groundwater recharge in India? So, a report, basically, the Dynamic Groundwater Resources of India report, was published for 2022, and it says that the groundwater recharge and the extractable groundwater levels, it has improved since 2020. So it is showing that the things have improved. However, the experts, they do not agree to this, and they say that the assessment is not accurate. So there is difference between what the report is saying and what the experts are saying, so we don't know actually what is the reality, whether the things have really improved or not, because India is a water stressed country, and obviously by 2050 India is going to be the world's most populous country, overtaking China. So we need to look, is this like really happening or not, and if it is not happening, we need to ensure this to happen. So what are the dynamic and the static groundwater resources? So the groundwater resources that can be replenished annually, they are called the dynamic groundwater resources, and the other leftover resources which are not recharged annually, they come under the category of the static or in storage resources. So find out what is the Central Groundwater Board. This can definitely come in prelims. And the static or the in storage resources, they can be used during exigencies or during emergencies. And also, few years ago, World Bank also said that it had predicted that 21 Indian cities, which includes Delhi, Bengaluru, and Chennai, they will run out of groundwater. So, what are we doing to prevent this situation? What is our planning process? What are the precautionary measures that we are taking? What is our preparedness, basically the preparedness level to deal with this situation if this happens, or what steps are we taking to prevent this situation to happen? So that you need to find out and think about it, what innovative measures can be taken. Now, how does the groundwater is recharged? So obviously rainfall is the main source of recharge in India, and it accounts for over three-fifths of the total annual groundwater recharge. So we can work more upon this area. We can build more structures. We can increase the awareness amongst the communities regarding the importance of the rainfall, the rainwater harvesting. And there are large states in India which receive rainfall primarily during the southwest monsoon. So that is the time period or one factor that plays major role when it comes to groundwater recharge. Then for the state of Tamil Nadu, we know it is the northeast monsoon which is much more important, which is from October to December. And for the states, the northern hilly states of Jammu Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, and Uttarakhand, they receive significant rainfall throughout the year. So we can focus more upon rainwater harvesting. And when we talk about the rock types, the porous rocks such as the alluvial formation, which are found majorly and concentrated in the Ganga Brahmaputra basin, they are the good repositories. So also one important development for the prelims is that earlier the Groundwater Estimation Committee 1997 norms were used to calculate the groundwater data in India, but now we have shifted to the Groundwater Estimation Committee 2015 since 2017. So now we are using GEC 2015. So you can read this last para, you will get more facts about the process and the data about it, which becomes important for PT. Now basically, we are doing this in a reverse manner because I thought to take up the most important topic first and then we'll be discussing the other important information. Okay, so when we talk about the China's economy, currently it is undergoing stress. Basically, it is under pressure because of two factors. Firstly, there is deepening property crisis in China, and second, COVID outbreaks. So right now also COVID cases are near their peak in China. So this is also now a cause of concern whether is it going to spread to other countries or not, because things have come back on track after almost 3 years. Now coming to the editorial, which is talking about the dominance of Google, which it is basically using its misusing its power, so that is abuse of its dominance with respect to the Android mobile devices and the Play Store policies. So it asks the original equipment manufacturers to pre-install the Google apps in the mobile phones before selling them, so that people obviously they use more of Google apps. So that's one measure how Google is misusing its position and power. So with multiple jurisdictions, they have penalized Google for its anti-competitive practices. So this comes under the anti-competitive practices, and Google has also been recently penalized by the Competition Commission of India. But it seems that Google is unaffected because the amount of the fine is not that hefty that it is going to affect Google and compel it to change its practices. Now, this becomes an opportune time for India because other countries are coming up with laws to deal with this situation of unfair competitive practices happening in the market. So, India also has the opportune time to come ahead and formulate a law that gives India's digital governance regime, which is going through a overhaul, and with new proposed, you can say that we are coming up with the telecom law, the Digital India Act, the data protection law. So we have also come up with the amendments to the Competition Act also. So when things are happening so much at the same time, we need to tackle this situation also. So we aspire for an open, free, and fair internet where consumers can exercise their free choice. So this is about the Competition Amendment Bill. However, I did not find much from it, so we'll be taking up later. Okay, now we are talking about the tea output, specifically about the Darjeeling tea. So, Darjeeling tea industry has been witnessing a gradual fall in the production over the last more than a decade. So, for the past 10 years, Darjeeling tea industry is not witnessing a growth in its production. So, production it has been hit by different factors. Firstly, climate change. Second issue is regarding the labor. Third is labor productivity and efficiency. And fourth is the profitability. So these factors are hampering the performance of the tea industry. And facing the financial crisis, many planters they have also sold their gardens. And obviously the things have been aggravated because of COVID-19 pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic has impacted sectors in a diverse manner. So you're going to see its impact everywhere and anywhere. Then, ironically, we are seeing two things. First, the crop, obviously, the crop production has been falling because of which the average price of tea is also falling. And at the same time, because of the fall in the production and the cost, we are seeing the increase in the cost of production. So these are two ironic things which are happening simultaneously and which is negatively and which is adversely affecting the tea farmers. And if we compare and if we have a look at the average cost of production, it has gone up by 30% when we compare it with the last year. So by 30% it has increased in 1 year. So these are the challenges being faced by the tea farmers, the tea producers, and this was specifically about the Darjeeling tea. And when we talk about FDI, we are seeing a decline of 9% during the first half of this fiscal year. And FDI is not just, we in our mind we have a picture that FDI is just about the private sector bringing in investment, building, like coming up in new businesses, making infrastructure. So it includes the equity inflows also, it is reinvested earnings also, and other capital. So these are also the other heads of FDI. Now RBI brings the GSTN under the account aggregator framework. So the RBI it has included GSTN, that is the Goods and Services Tax Network, as a financial information provider under the account aggregator framework. So the move is aimed at facilitating the cash flow based lending to the MSMEs, and the Department of Revenue will be the regulator for the GST and for furnishing returns on the GST. So basically, the function of the account aggregator is to enable the sharing of data between individuals and the financial institutions. So this will help in more transparent lending, and this information will help the lenders to provide loans to individuals or an entity based on this information, so that they'll be able to get information and understand much better about the financial credibility of the borrower. Now, when we talk about the edible oil, this is an important topic for prelims and mains both. So the trend can be asked in PT, and direct question can obviously come in mains. So due to a decline in the global prices and the robust domestic crop prospects, we are witnessing fall in the prices of the edible oil, and India meets 58% of its annual edible oil consumption of around 24 to 25 million tons via imports. So 58%, we can say almost 60% has been met through imports, and annual imports they amount to 14 million tons, of which of the total import of 14 million tons, 8 million ton of palm oil that is imported from Indonesia and Malaysia only. So these two players become important. And also, when we talk about the soya and the sunflower, they come from Argentina, Brazil, Ukraine, and Russia. So, sometime back, obviously, we were facing issues as far as importing of the edible oil is concerned because of the Russia-Ukraine war, and also Indonesia was talking about, you know, putting certain restriction on the exports of the edible oil. So that was a cause of concern, and now things have eased down, and there is not that much level of stress, and also prices are also cooling down. So that's a good development. And also When we talk about the mustard oil, which has a share of more than 40% in the domestic edible oil production. So, when we talk about the domestic production in India, mustard oil has 40% of the share in the domestic production. And rabi and winter crops area has also witnessed an increase when we talk about the mustard and the groundnut, which is reported 13% increase in it. So things are now positively developing in the edible oil sector. So this is it from the Financial Express. Now, lastly, we'll just have a look at the Mint. So in Mint, we are basically seeing how the Indian firms will benefit out of the Australia Free Trade Agreement. So the first one is the benefit to the IT firms. So an amendment to the DTAA, that is the Double Taxation Avoidance Agreement, has been done, which is going to favor the IT firms in incurring higher amounts of profits and income. Secondly, it is going to positively impact the pharmaceutical sector. So, in the pharmaceutical sector, say that India has the highest number of US FDA approved sites and other stringent regulatory agencies approvals. Also, India exports $387 million worth of pharma products to Australia, which is registering growth of approximately 12%. And this share can definitely go up, it can go up in future. Then thirdly, it is going to give a push to the labor intensive industries, which is apparel, textiles, leather, footwear, gems and jewelry, furniture, machinery, and electrical goods. So these are the different sectors which will be positively benefited out of this FTA with Australia. And also, India would get an opportunity with, like, really, India is going to positively benefit in reducing its trade deficit with Australia or not is to be seen, because Australia is mostly it's an open economy. So in FTA we have just come to the agreement about lowering the import duties. So we'll be seeing whether India is coming out of the trade deficit with Australia or not. So this was it for today. I hope you have understood all the topics, the key developments, and the facts that I have tried to explain to you. And thank you so much for joining Ansarkari. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and also share this video as much as possible. Thank you so much.